So basically, guys, what I'm doing is I've decided to start sharing things that I learn, because I believe so many people that we meet in our lives, whether it's through a book or in person through a course, they have so much to share. We can learn so much from each other. And for a long time, I felt a little bit of like all this learning is going nowhere. But a lot of this learning has given me so many insights and so many lessons. And I've decided to just go ahead and interview some of the people I meet along the way and I become fascinated by, and that I believe have something important to share, or they have some way touched me and, you know, my path in some way. And I'm very grateful to have met a lady called Sumeena Gupta on one of the joint courses that we did. It's called the KBB course. It's online. And through that, we met, and I feel there was a strong connection. And I'd like to spend some time today just discussing, talking with, you know, to Sumeena, getting her insights and just sharing what she does. So a little bit about Sumeena. She's a mother of three children, young kids. She's a mompreneur, as she likes to refer to herself, and she's worked very hard at having a business, being there for her kids and looking after herself. Her journey as entrepreneur started so she could have a lifestyle business, so one that allowed her to be there for her family. Having had multiple successful businesses, she now coaches women to grow their own business. Um, so she knows that women living life of impact and making money and having impact can not just change them, but many generations, so a ripple effect. She's all about being the change. And I'd like to welcome Sumeena today and say thank you for agreeing to chat and to share yourself with me and whoever watches this video at a later stage.
Thank you so much, Desi. It's such a pleasure. And I always take it as such an honor to not only have a chat with someone like yourself, and you and I have had a few chats now, and they're always so fun and just full of information and joy. But also, if anyone hears even one thing that just lands, it makes such a difference. And I feel that we all have that impact in the world where we can just say one thing for somebody and it makes a difference. And we should take that as a win for the day. I love that. So thank you.
Thank you. I agree. I think like people, we take for granted the people in our lives that can teach us things. We always think it has to be someone higher or better or mightier than us. And we forget about the everyday people that are out there, you know, putting the work in, having the experience. And those are our biggest teachers in many ways. And I've learned a lot from people in my environment, past jobs, you know, colleagues, friends, and people that I'm meeting along the way. So I want to embrace this learning and share it. I've just made the decision to start sharing the learning.
Oh, that's going to be so powerful. And in fact, it's more real when it comes from someone who's actually in the trenches. This is one feedback that I get all the time as a business coach, that there's many business coaches that are too many steps ahead. So it feels as if they're disconnected to the message that and the feelings that we're having, maybe when we're just starting or when we're a couple of years in. It's very different, the experiences you're having then when you've been around for 10, 20, 30 years. So I always resonate with women who are just starting and, you know, maybe 6 months to a year into their journey, because I understand that.
That's
so I can true. Really, and it makes a difference. So in our lives as well, you know, you don't have to be running marathons. You can just have been running 5 miles a day to encourage someone else to run 1 mile a day. That's all it takes, really. And I love that.
I like that too, because you also feel less intimidated by the person who's a few steps ahead.
Yeah,
because sometimes it could be like this impossible journey that you have to reach, and sometimes you don't always get there. You don't always want to be, but you start to want that without it being your goal for real. So yeah, I like that.
That's so true. Yeah, I never thought about that, but that is so true.
Yeah. So could you please share a little bit more of your journey so far? So something you feel is important to share or you'd like to share?
Yeah, I would love to. First things first, you know, I come from a very a background that entrepreneurship was not encouraged. Not many people, in fact, no one in my family is into business. Everyone, we're first generation immigrants into the UK. I was born here, so my parents were very much of kind of that scarcity mindset where it was just about having a secure job, being safe. So that's what I was taught. But I realized very early on that I could not really be in a situation where I was working for somebody else if it wasn't something that I really believed in. So, you know, I wasn't a born entrepreneur or born to a family of entrepreneurs. I kind of had to find my own path with that. And that was difficult. And I'll be honest, the first reason that I decided to start my business was selfish. It was about my why, about my family, wanting to be there for my kids, not wanting to be out the house all the time as they were growing up. So, you know, when I do my work with women, and I'm like, we work on our why, and I always tell them your why will change. And mine definitely changed. Mine started as being very selfish, self-centered about me and my family. But very quickly, I realized that actually I wanted to have an impact and inspire and just be a change in the world. So, you know, I think it's okay. It's okay to know for yourself why you're doing something, and you don't have to explain yourself to anybody, but just get started. If you do have a dream, whatever that is, it may not be starting a business, it may be starting a hobby, but just get started, and don't think about having to explain yourself. Just know in your core why you're doing something. So that's, you know, yeah, it really gets you, it allows you to get started, because a lot of people don't start because they think it needs to be bigger than it actually is. So, you know, my reason must be really important, or it must be, you know, life shattering or changing the world, but it doesn't have to be. It can be your own reasons, and they can be as small as you want them to be, but they're still valid.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with the why, because you think it has to be the static thing that if I haven't figured out this big purpose, that I'm stuck and I need to wait until I figure it out. Whereas it could be, like you said, a hobby or something you're genuinely pulled towards out of curiosity, rather than this big, crazy answer of moving forward.
And the other thing is, I think that when we decide to do something different, or even, you know, for me about business, we think that it should be really important and special. So, for example, it should be making us lots of money. But I know lots of people who start big, successful businesses by doing things for free or for very little. And then they realize that it's their love and that they're good at it, and that they can just make this into something. So we don't have, like when I first started my business, which is a hospitality business in Indonesia, we didn't start with a 5-star hotel. We started with 5 small rooms that were really cheap, because we were on this tiny island in Asia, but it didn't matter because we were so proud to have started our dream, and we just wanted to get going. But very, very quickly, within 6 months, we realized that, wow, we've got something here. And then we were able to start thinking about charging more, scaling, investing, making things better. And 14 years later, it's a 100% a different place. I mean, you won't imagine. So it just takes by getting going, and we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And I honestly cannot stress that enough. You know, if we start, it takes a long time to get started, get the ball rolling. But once it does start rolling, it just goes. It goes at accelerated speed. And I've seen that in my life. And I'm sure everybody listening has seen that in some way, shape, or form in their life, where they maybe started on a fitness journey, or they started a new hobby. And at first it's just so hard, and it's just like takes so long to do something. And then suddenly you realize, oh God, I've got this, I've got the flow. And then it just starts happening easy. And that's so true with business as well. So that's what I love. I love to show women that actually it's not as daunting or as big a deal as it needs to be. It can be free, it can be small, but just try and get started, and you'll see, and you'll know very quickly.
So with your resort, what did you feel like? What was that personal touch that you believe made that a success?
Well, we always wanted our place to be a place we knew our values. So we knew what our place was about. It wasn't just a bed or a place to sleep or a place to eat. And we also offered diving and a spa. So it isn't just a place to get the service. We really made it about our values, which was community, inspiring, like sustainability. So that ran through all of everything that we did. So when you came there, you felt like you were also getting an education, you were becoming part of something bigger than yourself. You know, we're very much about beach cleans, and we were very much about getting to know the staff. And we have, you know, we're in Indonesia, so you can often go to a different country and not meet any of the locals. I don't know if you've ever had that experience.
Yeah, lots, always.
Yeah, but we made it a part of our kind of our personality, that the staff would talk to you, and they would get to tell you stories, and they would like explain what their lives were like. So we encouraged that. And that's why people came, and they felt that they were immersed in a community, and that made a big difference to how, you know, how they felt with their experience. They felt that they had actually been somewhere and connected. So that became our reputation as well. And I believe that's what made us very successful, because people came for the whole experience, not just for a place to sleep or a place to eat, which, you know, there's hundreds of those on this island.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we have to find our way of being different.
No, for sure. So are you still, is that still part of your life, or have you transitioned into something completely different from there?
Well, I know you're
I know
hot
this
on,
answer, but yeah, I just wanted
yeah,
to make that clear, that
and
transition. Yeah.
also I know you're hot on resilience. So I'm going to frame this answer with resilience, because I'm
Okay.
really, like, honestly, I would say that being resilient, which to me means adding layers to ourselves and having like extra skills in our toolkit, that has honestly saved my life this year. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell
Yeah.
you the story behind
Uh-huh.
that. So we obviously have a hospitality business in Indonesia, and it was super successful. I mean, you know, last year we were making 7 figures. It was just
Wow.
booming. We couldn't ask for anything more. And then we all know what happened
Yeah.
earlier this year. COVID hit
Surprise.
and hospitality died a death. And we went from multiple, you know, amazing revenue streams, almost 100 staff,
Wow.
really, really kind of established and settled, to zero.
Sure.
I can't even tell you how drastic the change was. I mean, if anyone listening has friends in hospitality and restaurants, they probably
Yeah.
can relate. But we just went from so much to nothing overnight. But I had been moved into coaching about 2 years ago, maybe longer
Was
actually.
this while you were in the business? Okay,
Yes.
so it was was it a side interest or with?
Well, it's kind of another story, but because
Okay, all right.
the
So,
business was really successful, I did the good thing that you should do as an entrepreneur, because actually when we work in our business, we're business owners. So we're in the business, we're business owners, but what we actually want to be is the visionaries and out of the business and guiding the business. And
okay.
I had managed to get myself to that point where I didn't have to work in my business 100% of the time. And that's actually another thing I teach women. I'm like, if you're a CEO, you actually only do 20% of the work of your business, and that's your genius. And the rest you have to find other people to do. And you should be doing that within a couple of years of having a good business. But, you know, that's how I teach women to run their businesses, so that they don't get overwhelmed and get stuck in the detail, so that they can actually extract themselves and stay in their zone of genius and delegate out the rest. That's my 80/20 tool. It's tattooed on my arm.
Okay.
But
So it
because I
worked
had,
for you
it
from
really worked.
experience.
It's the
Yeah.
only way. It's the only way. And it's not only me. There's industry experts everywhere will tell you this, that to be a business owner, you have to get yourself out the detail, and you have to find other people to do everything for you, and you focus on your genius. And that's why I was able to move away from running my business and just sticking to my zone of genius, which in my case was the vision, the strategy, and the coaching of my managers, and focus on coaching women to start their businesses. Because I realized, moving on from my why, that my why now was to actually impact people and help them change generations. So I knew that if I could help a woman start her business, live her dream, be the person she was meant to be, she's going to be, you know, such a stronger mother. She's going to be a better member of society. She's going to make a change in the world, and that's going to change the way that we generations grow up in the future, because women have a powerful role in society. We influence a lot of things.
Yeah,
So I
that's true.
had moved into coaching many years ago because of that. So, you know, yes, at one point I had both things going on. That stopped, hospitality stopped, and you can't imagine how much relief I felt that I still
Well,
had my coaching business, not necessarily because of the money, but because you always want to feel that you are secure and that you're adding value, and that you are actually, you know, we all have that feeling of wanting to feel worthy, that we're actually doing something in this world. And I definitely have that human need of contribution and growth, which, you know, Tony Robbins talks about, and
yeah,
I've latched onto that.
yeah.
So for me, I was able to continue fulfilling my role in the world of
Wow.
contribution and growth. So resilience, going back to what your hot
Amazing
topic.
journey, I must say. Wow.
Yeah. And so because I had these toolkits, because I had been resilient building my layers, I didn't have the big crash that I could have had earlier this year. And I'm so grateful. And I want to, anyone who's listening, I would say, don't just kind of stick to what you're doing. Always be thinking about the layers, even if it's reading a book or just 10 minutes. It can actually take 10-15 minutes every day of just like something new in your head.
I
And you
agree.
know, we know many thought leaders, I know you and I obsess on self-development, who say 30 minutes a day is all you need.
Yeah, that's
You know, and
true.
that's enough. And I
Yeah.
feel like we should all be able to find 30 minutes a day, even if it's washing the dishes or like doing the housework while we're listening to something or walking to work or doing our exercise or something. So build those layers.
A lot of the insights come like just instantly, like it could be like in the midst of something and you're like, oh my god, that's really helpful, or something like along those lines. No, I agree.
Exactly.
Cool. It's a great journey so far. So where are you now in your mompreneur journey? Because I know you balance. I mean, I think that's one of the hardest things, because to be successful, or just to be running a business, or even just to be working as a working mom, and still having 3 children, young children, and still trying to, I mean, I think this is the question a lot of moms, even if they don't have their own businesses, would want to know about, like, how do you do it all?
Yeah,
well, be good at it.
First of all, I don't really, I mean, you asked me about my journey as a mompreneur. I don't actually identify with that word very much, because I believe that all moms, whether they're, whatever you're doing, if you're a full-time mom, if you're working, if you're running your business, you have as much to do on a day-to-day basis as anybody else. There is absolutely no difference as me being a business owner and a mom and, someone who is a full-time mom. In fact, I believe it's going to be a lot harder to be a full-time mom. And I will be honest, like, I went into business so that I could be more of a mom. So I come at it a very different way. I find it easier to have a business and be a mom, because you have so much more control of your time. And like, if you do the smart thing, like I said, if you, get yourself out of the detail and you only focus on your 20% and you delegate out the 80%, you have so much more free time as a business owner, because you choose when you can work and you don't work. You have so much more freedom. Freedom is one of my absolute values. So I know it's a little bit controversial, and I'm sure there's a lot of women with businesses going, it's really hard running a business. How, I can't do it all. But I have managed to figure out a way where I balance both perfectly for me and my family. It's not ideal. I'm sure loads of mums would want to spend more time with their kids. Some would want to spend less. I know what I want to do.
Oh wow.
So I'm very clear, and I think that this is one of the most important things, and I really emphasize this, and I teach this as well. Think about what you want and what's right for you. The noise that we hear, and you said it before, which is that we start getting to someone else's ambition. And we get distracted.
You lose yourself on the path. That's true.
We should really spend time going inwards and deciding what's right for us. So for me, there's certain things that I love to do for my kids, and there's certain things I hate. So I absolutely will hire someone to cook and clean at the drop of a hat. I would just, like, no brainer.
Ideal.
But so many women want to cook their kids' meals. Many. And I also had nannies when my kids were young and I was building my business. I did not bat an eyelid at hiring nannies, because I knew my time was more precious than doing some of the things for my kids. But I was there for the other things that I wanted to do for my kids. So it was an absolute choice that I made for myself. Now, lots of people let their children lead what needs to happen. And I don't agree with that. I think that as parents, we can set the boundaries. So I'm very clear with my kids. This is when I'll be home. This is when I'll be there for you. You're safe otherwise. This is what you can do. Making sure the nannies knew what to do, making sure my husband split his time as well. So I feel like we need to take back more power as women and just say to ourselves, like, this is okay. This is the way that I'm doing it.
Everyone of course.
Be okay with that.
Because then that probably means when you show up, you're really showing up. You're not just, distracted in your time with them. So I guess that's, it's not always quantity, it's quality.
That's so right, Desi. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. So one of the questions before we move down to your inspirational path, what is the biggest challenge? Because you've managed a lot of people, and people can be the hardest thing to deal with sometimes. So maybe you could share some of your challenges with managing people, and then how you have, as in a leadership role, managed to, navigate that.
Yeah, I love that question, actually. I am very empathetic, and that's something that a muscle that I've built. So when I hear someone's story, I really try and hear their story. And I hear a lot of stories. I hear a lot of excuses, especially where our business is and we have so many staff. There's always a reason for not showing up. There's always a reason for, something going wrong. and I just try and empathize. I'm like, okay, let me try and see where they're coming from, because I also have to appreciate the, you know, their background that they've come from, the education they may have had, the experiences that they have compared to me. So I cannot expect them to be able to maybe do things or respond to things, or anyone, even our kids. Like, we can have so much empathy for our kids as well, with the same way, which is, how can we expect them to do things the way that we want it done, because they're not us. They've got to have a different journey to that point. So empathy is number one. And secondly is definitely being firm but fair. So boundaries are massive. Like, okay, I understand that this time, but doesn't mean that we can allow that to happen again. And if it does, that's a boundary that's being crossed. So let's take some action. So, you know, same with kids, I guess. It very much is like handling. If anyone's a mom listening, if you're not a mom,
they've trained you for family life, or family life has trained you for them. It's like working together. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good one to know. Yeah, so I think boundaries, it makes people know where they stand with you. And I guess, you know, that you need that clarity in any situation, especially with kids.
Especially with kids. And with boundaries, I do a lot of work on boundaries with people. And what I try and say is, it's not about what other people can do to you, because you have no control over other people's actions. It's about how you will respond to something. And that's the boundary that you're setting. We can only control our boundary and what we will do about it, and we should stick to it. You know, that consistency thing. So, and being fair and all of that stuff. So yeah, having lots of stuff is actually pretty easy if everyone knows where they stand, and if you have a little bit of empathy, and so joyful to see so many people's lives impacted by what they do and what you'd help them do and what you create, and being able to support them and their families is such a blessing. So yeah, I love it, to be honest.
Wow, that's amazing. So your current new project, job, path, can you take us into that a little bit, like that new journey?
Thank you. Yeah, so like I said, I've been doing this for a few years, but I work with women to start their online businesses at the moment, focusing on online. So if someone has an idea, or they've already started but they're struggling, you and I have met through a very big course where there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are started but maybe struggling, or they have a dream that they're just finding hard to execute. I help them get focused, and I have created a very clear framework, which over the period of 4 months, we work through together. So I like to say that we co-create, and we come up with your business idea, we create the blueprint. And if you stick to that plan, which is probably the hardest part because people lose focus, but if you stick to the plan, you will scale your business towards 7 figures within 3 years.
Wow.
Because it's all about just being very clear. Like, this is my offer, this is who it's for, this is how I'm going to say my message, and this is how I'm going to deliver my marketing, and then just go. But the detail behind that can really get,
it's not as easy as there's quite a lot behind the scenes.
There is a lot behind it. And of course, 80% is mindset. So a lot of my work is, helping the women realize that this is their beliefs that are holding them back. Often imposter syndrome is the one thing that's holding everyone back. This is how we can work through it, letting people see that it's not about them, it's about the client and the transformation that they're creating, and just working through the mindset. And honestly, what I see as the biggest success is being someone's cheerleader and holding them accountable. So look at what you did. It was amazing. And why haven't you done that yet? You said you were going to do it. I have seen the biggest transformations just by saying to people, you're going to do that this week, aren't you? And it's like, yes, I am. And then they feel that they should, and they do. And they cannot believe how their life changes.
Did you share one of the most biggest breakthroughs, maybe as much as you can, with someone you've worked with? And that
I've got a woman that I've just finished working with. Bless her, she's amazing, and she's waited 17 years to take action. And then she wrote me a message. She's like, I did what I was supposed to do. I followed the process. I trusted. I've made my first sale. And that made me cry, because I'm like, 17 years.
Yeah. What was holding her back? Was it, again, like some of the things you'd said before?
It's imposter syndrome. It's always like, who wants what I've got? Who am I? I don't have enough experience. I don't have the qualifications. Am I good enough at what I'm doing? And I know, actually, imposter syndrome, but also the tactics. Like, how do I actually let someone know that I'm here and doing what I'm doing? And it's much easier than we think, especially with social media. Social media has just made it so much easier and absolutely free for us to be like, hey, look at me, this is what I do and I'm here. But of course, there's some small tactics around that, around optimizing your Facebook, around, you know, maybe setting up a group, telling people very clearly. There's a lot about messaging and being very clear about what you do and what you don't do, like repelling the wrong people. So marketing 101, like we do a lot of marketing stuff in my program, just not in a formal MBA marketing type of way, but in a practical, this is marketing, like this is all it is. It's an invitation, you know, it's like, come and work with me. This is what I do, and being very clear. So a lot of us know the theory, but we haven't put it in practice, so it doesn't make sense. But I love seeing the pennies drop. I love it when I'm working with someone and they're like, oh my God, I understand what you mean now. I'm just going to go. And they literally want to get off the call with me to start taking action. I had that yesterday, and she's like, okay, I've got to go. I've got work to do. And I was like, okay, see you later. And it's just so nice. Because amazing. We're just, you know, as coaches, we're just co-creators. We're just catalysts, and we're not doing the work. We have the easy part. We're like, okay, go do this. This is, you know, no, you go and do the hard stuff. So
what happens if you have someone in front of you, like you're the coach in that role, and they're not putting in the work, or they, you know, like, do you have those cases, and how do you deal with that when you do?
You know, that person has put their time and money into wanting to do something, and so if they're not putting in the work, that means there's another block that we need to work through.
So you'd say it's block related.
Yeah, it's not because they don't want to. They've put the time in, they've put the money, they want this, but what my job is to call them out on those blocks. So I hear, you know, you start hearing the excuses creep in. I've just got to do this one thing, or, you know, I'm just going to finish this first, then I'm going to this, and I'm like, I call them out. I'm like, you know, that's just an excuse for you. So, and then they realize, then they get the aha, and they're like, yeah, it is. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do.
That's amazing. So yeah. So what is your, as a coach, what would you say your superpower is here? Because obviously bringing something to attract people that want to work with you. What's that thing that makes you stand out or different, or that you offer that you believe is different from what else is out there?
For me personally, because I think there's certain traits that all coaches have to have, like empathy, they have to want to help people. So I feel like all coaches have that anyway. So that's no different. What I believe I bring to the table, which I know is my superpower, is I can see what people want before maybe they can themselves. So we can have a conversation and they may tell me something, and I am already in my head constructing, actually, in a few weeks, this is going to come out. This is what they actually want. But they're almost too scared to say it. Then we get there, and when they actually say it, they feel so relieved, because it's like, finally, my dream is out of my head. I can actually say this. And I'm talking big dreams here. I'm talking like, I want to make 100 million in my business in the next 5 years. You know, big dreams. We don't. No, that's what I mean.
That's like, anyway, yeah, I'm gonna just take your word and go with it.
But these are the things that we have in our head that we were scared to say, but we're holding on to them somewhere. And then as we work together, I get those dreams out of people, so that you put a vision. You know this because you and I were like Tony Robbins fans. Set your destination, your GPS, and you'll get there. So if you don't declare it, you don't make it real.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's declaring those things, and then
that's true. Getting clear with your GPS system.
Yeah, exactly.
Fixing it. Exactly. Okay, so where do you get your inspiration and ideas for your material? Where does this come from?
A lot of it is, I mean, I'm old. I'm well, not old. I'm 45, so I've been around.
That's not old.
It's not old. It's not old, and I feel very youthful. So I'll take that back. But I've been around, number one. So, you know, I've seen things, I've done things, I've learned things, I meet people, I hear things. So I soak in things very quickly, and then I'm able to turn them around so my audience understands them. Because, you know, we hear things from certain people and they don't land, and then we can say them in our way.
That's one of the things, like when we chatted together, like the few times we've had our conversations, it's like you get things very easily, and you also understand the person in front of you so well. Like I felt that from the first day we spoke. I was like, it feels like she gets what we're talking about, and me, and it was very quick and instant. I did feel that from you 100%.
Yeah.
So how do you wind down after a stressful day? Like, what tools can other people take away from your coaching practice or experience, or your personal experience for winding down with strength?
Well, first of all, I give myself permission to wind down. So, you know, I will, definitely.
Wow,
because
I didn't think of it like that. Give yourself
so
permission, because
it's very intentional. It's like, okay, it's time for me to look after myself now. Like, am I having that bath, or am I going to read my book? Or, you know, I literally will say to everybody, this is my time, go away. My kids are very used to me saying, okay guys, I'm not mum anymore, disappear. I'm okay with that. And people might hear that and say, who's this woman? What? But my kids know it. They know I love them. They absolutely, I'm there. We have the best relationship, and, you know, they're amazing, but they understand that I have my boundaries. So we as women, we do so many things. We need to be absolutely clear when it's time for us to wind down. For ourselves, we have to tell ourselves.
I think that's so important what you just said, because it also teaches, through our example, we're teaching them that they can also wind down, and that they can also tell people, give my space, because we forget that they still, even though we're not saying certain things, they're picking things up from us subconsciously. And that's, I think, one of the best ways to teach them, you know, like, mum needs her time, respect it, and you are allowed this luxury too, you know, and you should also ask for it as you grow, or even now. So I like that a lot. I think that's something I'm going to take away from this big time.
Good, because I would rather that I would rather do that than be resentful. To be in a place where you you start getting into that bitch mode, don't you? I've been learning a lot about the bitch wound lately, and I love it.
Can you say that again? I've not heard of that.
The bitch wound.
Okay, so, I haven't heard of that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have, as women, you know, there's this whole school of thought around the divine feminine, and we have 3 wounds, and one is the bitch wound, one is the whore wound, and one is the witch wound.
Okay.
These are wounds that we're carrying through generations, because we've been burnt at the stake as witches, or we've been called whores if we express our desires, or we've been called a bitch if we're too vocal and clear about who we are. And often as women, if we not expressing ourselves, we become bitchy.
That's so true.
Stomping, you know, we're like things without actually being in ourselves, slamming doors. But wouldn't it just be better to just be absolutely clear and go, guys, this is my time, can you leave me alone now? And just not be in that bitch mode, or just be feeling it, even if you don't express it, because that manifests internally as, you know, as health issues, etc. And it's a whole nother story, but I've experienced some of that in my life with people in my life, and that's why I don't want to go there. And Dr. Gabor Mate has written an amazing book called When the Body Says No, especially about how suppressing our emotions.
When the Body
really
Says
good
No.
book. And he's got lots of YouTube materials about this.
Can you just tell me his name again, the doctor?
Dr. Gabor Mate. G-A-B-R.
G-A-B-R.
O-R.
O-R, Gabor Mate.
M-A-T-E.
M-A-T-E.
Yeah.
And they've got YouTube stuff as well.
Yeah, so much YouTube stuff. And he talks about how if we don't express our emotions and get them out, they manifest internally as illness. So I'm not going there. Yeah, because we have a lot of
that's a whole other conversation topic. Okay, so so how has the past work experience of your previous business that was doing so well integrate, like, how does that knowledge currently help you in what you do now? And what's the biggest thing that you're using that's helping in your new coaching practice?
Oh, so much. Well, number one, the 80-20 rule, because I had a burnout and it was terrible. And my marriage was at stake, my health was at stake, my relationship with my kids and my business was at stake. And we had already put in about 5 years of a lot of effort and a lot of money at that point. So burnout was not good. And I don't wish that upon anybody. So that's definitely one lesson that I teach. And that's why I'm so into delegation, automation, or elimination. And we talk about the 80-20 rule and how we would grow our businesses. Secondly, tenacity, keeping going even when things get hard. You know, we've had people steal from us. We've been through all the typical things like earthquakes. Now we're going through coronavirus. So just having tenacity to keep going, not giving up. And also that whole thing about not being overwhelmed by the big thing and taking the small steps to do the little things that become the big things.
That's a great one.
It's so steps. Key. You know, we can get so overwhelmed by even so for example, we had quite a big property and it needed a lot of construction, and we could have just said no because there's so much, but we just decided to start with one room at a time, or the bar and different areas. And now we have multiple businesses and they're all very successful, but we didn't start that way. So I'm so much about this kind of just start small and steady, and you will get there.
That's also for decluttering a house or a room
Yeah.
or a kitchen. I'm going to use some of that as well, because I think
So
that concept of small little bite sizes, and then eventually that does add up, and you do see the difference. So that's really
so
useful.
true. Yeah, like that's why I said, if you have an idea, start for free. Just start. Offer your services for free, or make things. If you're making something, just start making it and selling it to your friends and see if there's a need, and you'll very quickly see that things are moving very quickly.
Because you talk a lot about testing things. So I mean, a lot of the times, like we said, we stop because we don't know where to start. But if you're starting to test and say, like, I'm getting curious rather than I need to know all the answers, because that's one of the things that bombs me down as well. Like, I feel like I should have figured things out, and I haven't, and I don't. But the little tiny steps of curiosity guiding your path, and like, you obviously still have to survive, so do the realistic, real thing, but at the same time keep the curiosity going and the interest, and let it see where it takes you. That's how
you're an example of that, Dizzy, because I know that you have obviously your career, but you're also dabbling in other things, so you're building your own resilience. And you and I have talked to, you've got so many qualifications under your belt, and so that you've got these different layers that you can fall back on and integrate also. And that's actually what makes you so unique, and anyone who's listening is unique because of all of the different things they bring to the table that nobody else brings, that exact same combination.
It's true. And life and different experiences, there's a lot to be said for that, like you said earlier. So what is the biggest obstacle? I know you said COVID, but like also life obstacle that you've faced along the way, because also changing a career, and there's also criticism and people around you like thinking you're going loopy because you have a good thing, and then what are you chasing? So what has for you been the biggest personal obstacle on this journey of yours?
So I have had one particular obstacle, but I've also I'm glad very early on decided to overcome it. And that was that no one really understood what I wanted to do. And I very quickly realized that I did not have to explain myself to everybody. When I say very quickly, I was probably 30, but I'm glad I did it then rather than never at all.
Yeah. So, how did you come to that? Like, was that something you talking to, like coaching yourself, was that someone's?
That's a good question. I feel like I came to it by getting to a low point, to getting to such a low point that I was just like, do I carry on doing what everyone expects of me, or do I actually do what I feel is right and I know is right for me? So it was kind of a divine intervention moment as such, where I actually do really, really practice surrender now, where I try and listen to the messages from the universe and take them in and respond. And I didn't know that back then, but that's what I did. I obviously had some sort of message, which was, there's other ways, you can do something else, you have other plans, do them. Rather than ignore that, I actually acted on it. And it was difficult because I had to tell a lot of people things that they didn't want to hear, but I have zero regrets. And I look back and all those same people are now saying, well done on what you did. But if I had listened to them at that time, I wouldn't have done any of it. And that's so key.
A lot of people say this. I'm hearing this from so many people. So so listening to that, whatever is pulling you from within, like that gut instinct or whatever it is that best.
I'm reading a really good book called Outrageous Openness. My coach recommended it to me, and by Dosha Da Silva, and I think her name's Da Silva. She talks about surrender really well, and I'm reading it going, oh, I was doing that, but I didn't know that's what I was doing. So we've all probably had moments of surrender where we've just said, I'm feeling this intuition. My gut feel says do this, or that doesn't feel right, I'm not going to do that. But we don't always act on it. And obviously the more we act on it, I feel like there's more of that kind of divine intervention moment where we just say, this was meant to be. So
I feel like well. You believe, like, looking back at each time you had that, can you look back and say, you see that there you go, there's your validation.
I guess the trick where we get the big distinction is where we don't look back and say that was a good idea. We actually can in the moment accept that it's a good idea. That's maybe where the winning is, because then we don't doubt everything, we actually respond to everything. So that's what I'm trying to work with a little bit more now, which is like, I understand that I'm surrendering, I trust it, rather than look back and said, oh, I surrendered and it worked out for me. Does that make sense? I know that's a little bit of a...
No, you're right. One of the things I wanted to ask you now with COVID and people wanting to get your services, let's say, but also having all this doubt and worry, and also money is a huge deal.
Yes.
How do women like overcome this and still come and find you, and or just how do you help women when they're already stressed with other things because of what's going on in our world? We can't deny the reality.
Yeah.
How do you help people get through this as well as go after whatever it is that they're dream businesses or whatever they're wanting to achieve?
Yeah. So to be an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. We all know that. And I feel like that when you decide to invest in yourself and you decide to invest not only the money, because that's really just part of it, the time and the energy, because a lot of women that I work with have day jobs. So they have to actually do what they're doing in part-time, in the weekends or in the evenings. So it takes a real energy commitment as well as a financial commitment. And obviously just, taking the risk of doing that is your first step to saying yes to yourself. It's as important to take that first step to saying yes to yourself as it is to do all the tactics and the stuff in between. Because when you say yes and you just say, I'm going to actually put this time and money into this thing because I believe in myself and what I'm doing and where this is going to go, you have started the journey and you get going. It's a bit like, if I said to you, you can do this, and you're like, can I? Oh, I'm not sure. You can't.
Yeah,
It's that moment when you decide that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that.
So when it comes to the doubt and the investment, it's not for me to say this, but this is a realization the person needs to have for themselves, is this is going to come back to me tenfold. Like, I'm going to invest this money, or this time, but I know that in the future, I'm going to have freedom. I'm going to have a lot more abundance of money. I'm going to make more for doing less. I'm going to be able to write that book that I always wanted to write, and all the things that we want. So we have to, it's like almost a test of the universe. Like, are you willing to sacrifice a little bit for your dream? Do you really want your dream that much?
Yeah.
Like,
you might not really want it at the end of the day. You might also realize that this isn't what I want, and give yourself that space to make
absolutely
to go in another direction. Because sometimes when you declare it, you feel like you have to follow that path, and then you're like, along the way you realize, hang on, something, I need to change a little. I need to change my direction. This isn't quite where I'm going. I feel like that's a big part of it too.
Yeah, and that's why it is important to invest the time and the money in something. If I don't know if you've heard this saying, but I've heard it a lot, which is if you don't pay, you don't pay attention.
Yes, I agree. Like, so many free courses online that I've signed up for, and they're still waiting there. But the ones that I actually paid for, I made sure I went back, especially the ones that were like a little bit too much. Yeah, it can also get a bit obsessive. Like, this is one of the things I have trouble with sometimes, because I get so interested in every next new course and I want to learn it all. And I think honestly, if money was no option and it was just this big thing, I would just be doing one after the other just for the love of doing the course.
Yeah.
But it comes a time where it gets a bit nuts.
Well, you might know this because obviously you've got your background in NLP, but there's a science behind that, which is obviously the dopamine hit we get from not only buying something, but we feel like, oh, we're doing something good for ourselves. But I call that is shiny object syndrome.
100%.
The first thing I say to women who work with me, and this is why I call my program The Power of One, is stop everything for now, focus, and let's see what you need. And I have stopped women investing money in stuff they didn't need. And they've turned and said to me afterwards, I wish I'd met you 6 months ago. I would have saved thousands.
Yeah, because you can see, especially on the personal development path, there's always someone trying to sell the next best thing that you didn't know you needed.
Yes.
And that can become, you've really got to, I've had to become aware of this because I am genuinely interested in personal development, but at the same time, you also keep, you don't want to always keep thinking you have to fix something to move on. Just start with, we have what we need right now for what is in front of us right now. That's what I'm learning as I'm going on this journey.
Yeah, that's why I try and that's why when we work together, we make a commitment, and you've committed to working with me, so we create your blueprint, and I would say to you, you stick to that for the next 3 years. Of course, you'll add on learning along the way. I learn something every day. I spend 30 minutes to an hour, maybe more every day learning, but I know that it's all adding inwards, not taking me outwards. Like, it's all coming into my path, not distracting me from my path.
So that's what you say to people who come and work with you. That's the
focus. Get really focused on what it is that you're doing, and then add layers to that, not distract yourself from it. And that makes the biggest difference.
That's true, because you wear yourself thin when it's too many different things, like not one is coming out stronger. It's like kind of fizzling away. That's really helpful. So what have you been most understood about when it comes to what you do? Like when people think, Sumeena, she does misunderstanding. What's that thing that they misunderstand you about that you wish they would just get right? If there is anything, I don't know at this point. I don't know if the question makes sense. It's a weird one. It's a weird one, I know, but I thought, let me try this one and see.
I love it. That's a really good question. What have I been most misunderstood about? I have to say this, and I don't know if you're going to be, this sounds a bit cheesy, but I really attract amazing people into my life. Awesome. I don't actually let in negative people, and that doesn't mean, obviously we're on social media, so there's negative people everywhere, but I'm really good at delete and block. I'm really good at very quickly, I don't even accept friend requests if I don't feel there's a vibe. Like, I'm very intuitive. So I've found people on social media as well, just like from a comment they made 2-3 weeks ago, and I'm like, actually, I've had a client who signed up with me recently who I just found from a comment she'd made on a post 2-3 weeks ago, and I could feel the emotion in the comment. So I sent her a direct message and we had a conversation, and she wanted to work with me. So I'm very intuitive. So because those people are not in my life, and I'm talking about real life as well, Desi, I'm very intentional about what I let in. I'm not saying that I'm not misunderstood, but maybe I don't hear it because I'm not with the people who would tell me. Maybe.
It's a great answer. I like it. I'll take it. I think you handled that one really well. So what would you say to a woman who wants to get started? She has fear and procrastination, and like first thing, like off the top of your head, what to do? First step.
Yeah, I've said it a few times here already, is just start for free.
Start for free.
I would just
that would be the takeaway. Start for free, just offer that and play with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me see where I wanted to take this. So what's been the biggest insight that's helped you pivot, so that you were at a certain level and then you got this amazing insight and it just pushed you further? Has there been something like that? I'm sure there has.
Yeah, there has. I had a very low point about 4 years ago when I turned 40, or 5 years ago when I turned 40, where I was like, everything's going right. I have money, I have kids, I have my husband, everything is amazing, my health, but I'm not fulfilled. And so success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure, as you and I both know. And so that was a very big pivotal moment for me, where I realized I have a need to constantly feel that I'm fulfilled. And for me, that's a human need of impact and contribution and growth. So I now am very intentional about focusing on that. Even if it's not in a business coaching environment, even if it's in a day-to-day, the way that I treat people type of way, I'm very intentional about keeping that in front of mind, because I know that I have that need. And that was a pivot I only made when I was 40, where I was consciously aware of that. So not too long ago.
Makes sense. Wow. Something about that 4-0 that changes things for us.
Yes. I think every decade.
Especially the 4-0. I don't know. Something happened there as well for me, and I'm still trying to
Well, apparently at 50, there's a big one, because as women, we become very wise. So at 50, we actually really step into kind of who we are. So I'm kind of looking forward to that as well.
Still have some years to go. Okay, cool. So there's another big, great one, I think. Okay. So
a few more.
Favorite book ever, and quote that you still you hold as your emotional pick-me-up, if there is one like that.
Oh gosh. Okay. Favorite book ever.
That's hard to pick.
You're asking the wrong person. I have a billion books.
Okay. If you were to choose one of the top few.
One that I refer to a lot is The Prophet by Khalil Gibran.
Lovely. Yeah, I've only read some extracts. Yeah.
I came across that very early when I was in my late teens, early 20s. And even before I'd had kids, even before I'd really lived proper life, I felt like I learned some big lessons before I even lived life. Yeah. So that was a really good book for me.
Do you remember the quote? Something? Yeah.
Well, there's a really good extract from there about children and how we are our parents, as parents, we're just the bow and the kids are the arrow. And why that impacted me is when I was younger, I related that to myself, and that allowed me to detach from the expectations that my parents had from me, which were holding me back, because it allowed me to realize actually their job is not to control what I do. Their job is to actually help me get into the world, and they're not doing that. So that allowed me to reject how I was being brought up, and I needed that. But it's also now allowed me to be the parent that I want to be for my kids.
So same thing, to allow them, same thing you're giving them. So how are you actually implementing that in a practical example to give them slowly that tool of, I'm going to start doing things on my own without needing mom's guidance every step? I'd really like to know your insight.
We ask the question a lot, what do you think?
Oh, okay. Yeah, simple.
Very simple. So if they just like blah blah blah, you know, some problem or some issue or something they're dealing with, and we're like, what do you think needs to be done? How would you want to deal with that? What's, you know, and letting them work through that. And of course there's different ages, they can come up with different answers, and sometimes the answers are very, you know, cute and they're not going to happen, but they think that they feel empowered to think.
That's actually simple, but it makes a lot of sense, because we forget sometimes we do the thinking for them, or we just want to save time and just get the thing done. And we don't give them the time to process. So I like that a lot, and I'm going to take that one away from common practice. That's my takeaway. One of my many from you. Okay, so the worst advice you've ever been given. You're so glad you didn't talk. Is there something? Oh, no, I thought I'd pull out some weird ones. Just
probably my whole childhood.
Your whole childhood?
No, I'm kidding. I had some really good advice from my mum and dad. Bless them, they're amazing people, but they just, you know, came from a different background. I have a lot of empathy for them as well.
Yeah, I can relate.
Probably, but I will say this though, it is from my parents, which is stay safe in your work. That's the advice, you know, that we were given, and, you know, work for your job, get a pension, don't be controversial, be safe, you know.
Security, it's chasing, which we understand, especially like knowing their background and their life. And we also seek security in many ways, but that is a big one also.
I now security not only in work but in life, but I actually now have realized that security comes internal. So for example, we traveled last year with our kids for 6 months, pulled them out of school, you know. We was just out on the road, but I felt 100% secure in what I was doing, in my decision, because the security was internal. So it does not have to be a house or a job or any of that. It just has to be you, how you are feeling.
Makes sense.
Grounded. So security, that's probably bad advice that I rejected, thank goodness. But I don't discredit it. I think it has a place.
I agree.
Sure.
And what are you most excited about right now? Like, what's the thing that like brings you to life right now, or excites you in your current role, and anything right now?
I absolutely love that every single day I make an effort to speak with somebody who needs help or some sort of support, or I do a talk like this, or I, you know, have a interview or something where I feel that I can say one thing that somebody can hear and it makes a difference. Just one. And I just want that, because now we need it more than ever. In this climate, the way that we feel, we all have bad days. We all have hard days. I have hard days as well. We all do. But if I hear someone else say that's something that helps me, I want to do that again, pay it forward. So every single day since March, I've made the effort to speak to someone or do a call or an interview or something, for absolutely no intention of getting anything back, but just to give. But that really makes me happy. That excites me. So thank you today for letting me fulfill my purpose.
For sure. I didn't know that. So there you go. You see, you attracted that. So what are you most grateful for right now as well? That's another question. Right now, in this moment, if you were to pick a few things. And I know you have a lot to be grateful for, but I'd like to hear that.
I do, and I tap into gratitude every single day. I mean, I go to the basics, like grateful for my heart beating, for the breath that I have, all of that stuff. So they're the basics that I'm grateful for. But what I'm actually grateful for right now, and I know this is really silly, but it's actually the connections that we can have over social media right now. Because for me, they're genuine. They're not just, I don't do the mass kind of, here's a blanket statement. I do the really kind of, let's jump on a phone call, let's get into Zoom, let's connect. So those connections have absolutely kept me going for the last like 9 months or whatever since COVID. So right now I'm so grateful for those.
I think you're right about that, because before social media had a different meaning, and also, you know, right now though, especially when you can't see certain people, or especially in some other countries that are having a harsher lockdown than we are currently, although we're also having quite a hard one. But yeah, it's a good way to still connect and to still, you know, communicate, which is really important. Also for us having family overseas, it's become even more valuable. Yeah, for sure.
Really valuable. Yeah. And Zoom. We just, I mean,
Zoom.
thank you to Zoom. What about you? What are you most grateful for? I'd be really curious to hear.
Definitely my family, and that I have my family. My parents are still here. I know, I mean, it's a blessing to still have your parents.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't have that privilege. And although we in the past butted heads with a lot of like our opinions and ideas, I'm at a stage now where I appreciate them more, even with the clashes and the disagreements. And just that my kids are healthy and well, and my husband is well, that we're here. And I feel gratitude for my family and for my close friends and my people that I call, you know, that I have that, you know, because I don't take it for granted. I would love to see them more, many of them, but it's just one of those things. But I do feel gratitude and lucky that I have also made meaningful friendships over the years as well. That's a big plus for me. So
nothing more special than relationships.
I think relationships is a big deal, and a lot of people that do struggle and suffer, one of the big areas that they do have this is a lot of unhappiness comes from having maybe relationships that aren't fulfilling, or even just friendships that are, you know, things like this. I think relationships is one of the key areas that brings a lot of joy. So it's a key area to work on, and not just take for granted that it's always going to be there. It's actually, you got to work on them and give them the time and the care. It's not just something that, so that's something you know, I am grateful for, and I do try to put effort into that. And become conscious of that being important, more and more so as time goes, to be honest.
That's so lovely. Cool.
Thank you. Okay, so a few more before I know I've kept you quite a while today, but last one then, let's just end this off. So what message do you have? No, that's going to take in the... So if people want to come find you, where can they find you? And what last message would you like to leave with people, like a message of hope or anything you'd like to add?
Okay, well, when people want to find me, you can definitely find me on Facebook. So you can share my Facebook details here, or I can add them when you post this.
Okay.
It's Sumeena Gupta, which is my name. So you'll find me. The last message that I would like to leave with everybody is probably, well, actually, first of all, if people do find me on Facebook, do let me know how you find me. So send me a direct message, or, you know, I'd also have my email, which is hello@SumeenaGupta.com. So maybe we can add that here as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I genuinely, this is what made me really good at hospitality. And also when I was traveling, I've traveled multiple times for extended periods. And the thing that I love is getting to know people. Like, I will spend 5 hours on a bus talking to a stranger, or people will visit us in our hotel, thousands of people that we meet, and I want to know everything about every single one of them. So it's not from a nosy perspective, it's from like a fascinated perspective. I just love knowing human stories. So please drop me messages with your stories, where you are, what you do, and everything. I would love that. My message is not necessarily COVID related, but it's just, you know, in general, I feel that we should, as people, I don't know if your audience is all women or not, but definitely for women, I feel like we should just tap into who we are and just be really proud of it, and just, you know, realize that we are a gift and we're so lucky to be here. And I do believe that we're spirits having a human experience, and, you know, all of that stuff. But this is the experience we're in right now. And that's the ultimate thing to be grateful for. So even if that experience is quite hard at the moment, or they're going through something, I know people go through all sorts. I know it. I see it. I've been part of that. But even to say, this is all part of my journey, this is my lessons, I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to, you know, make something from this. Sticking to that message, where we just know that this is just, it's just important that we're here. I hope that just helps someone to hear.
Lovely message. Thank you so much, Sumeena, and you gave me so much information. It was so wonderful and so enjoyable. Like, I didn't even realize how much time went past. Like, I still have like 6-7 questions, but
I need to come to Greece and hang out with you, and then we just like chat.
Cyprus. We're in Cyprus. Yeah, smaller than Greece. Yeah, no, sure. You know what? You totally should, when things clear up. It'd be so nice. I could talk to you forever. There's so much to learn from you. So thank you so much for this. This was amazing. I learned a lot. and I'm going to go check out the books you mentioned. I know you said The Prophet, but you said two more.
Yeah,
You said Dr.
Outrageous
Gabriel
Openness. That's really good. And
the second.
Outrageous Openness is a really good one.
Outrageous Openness. I'm going to check all these out.
Yeah.
Thank you,
about
Sumeena.
surrender.
Yeah, openness. Well, have a great day, and we'll connect soon.
Yes, and bye everyone. It was so nice. I hope this was
Thank you.
helpful. Bye, Desi. See you.
Bye.